All right, we're going live. So I'm making this video because I've been wanting to do these live videos and I've been putting it off, trying to get all the technical stuff worked out, and realized I just have to go for it. And we're going to see what happens in this video. First of all, hello, I'm James, and what I offer here on my channel are ideas that go against the mainstream, that actually end up where life is the gift of experiencing you. And it's a lot simpler than it seems. And I know that I complicated things on my path, and now I have recognized that my path has led me to understand that the path can be a lot more simple than what I experienced. And if you have a pulse on what's happening today, you get a sense that these things are already starting to happen within reality, that we're able to go past the hard, let's use the ugly term, ego world, and there's a generation of people that already have a sort of understanding of this. And it is being articulated. I'm not the only one speaking on this kind of thing. I just have a different way of looking at it and my own unique expression. And so what has revealed itself lately is the simplicity of how do we get to the thing that we want to get to. So it's figuring out who we are, being our authentic self, finding God, finding the peaceful world, being the enlightened one, the awakened one. All the different sayings, they're all kind of leading to the same place. A place that's different than the mayhem. And we can use the mayhem that's going on in our world now. If you've been able to pull yourself away from it at all, you can understand that it is the, if you can look at it from the macro, like outside of yourself, the amount of emotional stress and fear for people losing what they think they have, and recognize that that's what an individual journey is about, is just coming to face fears. And luckily, and that's hard to say, but luckily the collective agreements are ripping apart. And as that thread or that weaving is ripping apart, we're seeing what happens with that. People are projecting their fear onto each other. And there is another way to live. There's another way to experience this world, to express ourselves in this world that's different from participating in that. And if you are on the side of taking sides, then this video is not going to make sense to you. It'll be just another thing saying, no, you need to get on board and you need to be angry and you need to reach out from and be on my side and take my side because this is the right way. And that paradigm is dying, and that is paradigm A. What I consider paradigm A, and what I'm introducing is the idea of paradigm B. And the B is, to simplify it, is simply that we can look to moving to another paradigm that's just different. We have created stories around the words like love, peace. Even in the spiritual realm, everything gets hijacked and taken back into the paradigm A realm, where we need to be warriors and the paradigm A spirituality is still finding the next villain, and that's exactly what paradigm A is doing. And in paradigm B, it's something different, and it's simply experiencing reality from a different point of view. And if we take it like that, and that's how I introduce it, is that I draw a line in the sand, that I introduce language that helps people to focus, because what ends up happening in paradigm A is that whenever a good idea comes up that's showing paradigm B, it will be hijacked from fear and twisted to be turned back into a paradigm A problem. And paradigm A always needs to create a villain so that there's a hero to partake. And that can kind of basically sum up the ego right there. And so it comes down to very simple terms, that if you go on a spiritual journey, what you're going to find out if you actually go on one rather than an egoic spiritual journey is you're going to figure out that you're a spirit having a human experience. And after a while, when you really understand that, then you're going to know that. And then you're going to understand that you're a human having a spirit experience. And that's very different. And a lot of things twist and turn. It shows you a different relationship with time. You don't have the same, you're not putting together some human story, something outside. You're having the experience of being a human rather than creating this idea and starting from the relativity point of a human story. You are the story and living in the story of creation. And paradigm B has been for me the understanding of how reality works. And I'm very interested in how reality works. And I find that I can be a conduit from that and for that, but it is also the people around me that I am not alone, that my creations live within the heart of people already. There's that innate sense. That's why a painting will touch one person and do nothing for another person. A particular song will do something magical to one person and turn them off to another person. So we're all an integral part. And so if you're interested in this is our gift that we are bringing into this creation and creating from. So somehow from this, I wanted to bring up the idea of irony, and that getting to the point of understanding that I was a spirit having a human experience, I really started to understand the idea of irony and how important it is for putting all the pieces together, that the story that was in my thoughts of who I thought I was and what this world was and what other people's thoughts I should think of, there's always irony involved that pulls things to the surface. So something came to me this morning that peace is when the hero's actual peace is when the hero story requires no villain. Peace is when the hero story requires no villain. And there's irony, and I recognize the irony in that. But I also understand the message, which is that peace is something very different than what's going on. We can see that there in paradigm A and the collective collapse that's going on, the discombobulation, is that there are people that are actually just absolutely reaching out, looking for a hero to take, that they can project their fear onto, or to have have the hero outside of them that can take on the fear of the villain. And what's interesting is the villains exist because of people needing the villain hero aspect. And who doesn't need that is somebody who doesn't project their fear into the world. And that's what a spiritual journey, if there is a journey involved, it is about simply not pushing your fear onto the world. And that's what almost every movement or tribalistic idea through religion, economic systems, political parties, all the different things, ways people bring together or come together, they are fighting against something. And peace is a completely different thing. Peace is not the absence of war. Peace is perpendicular to that. Paradigm B is perpendicular to that. When I often introduce Paradigm B to people, their first aspect is to show me the villain that's the opposite of Paradigm B. Paradigm B doesn't have an opposite. Paradigm A requires opposites, but Paradigm B does not. And what we understand after that is that life is the gift of experiencing us. And there's all these other beautiful sayings that have been coming through that are just attitudes. And the way that we can get into this idea is the process of just understanding how we work, how humans work, how this reality works. And it's a lot more simple than the management of egos that happens in Paradigm A. The experts in Paradigm A that have if you notice, they have a antidote to a villain. And, look at pop psychology. Look at all these people with accreditation, and they write books about how to spot narcissists and what to do with narcissists. And they don't really understand that narcissists need codependence. So the best way to stay away from a narcissist or not to be in the company of narcissists are to not be codependent. And so the idea is to calibrate our psychology to ourselves. And yet these professionals are pointing people's attention at villains. And then in that, that the people that now are out to be like a vampire hunter or a narcissist hunter, they become analytical, and they go out and determine who are all the narcissists, and oftentimes they get it wrong. And that's a very narcissistic behavior, and it's also a very arrogant behavior. So it's the irony that's involved in Paradigm A, and getting through that is just simply looking at how do us humans, how do we act? How do we function? And oftentimes when I'm sitting down with somebody who has a problem, whether it be ADHD or PTSD or an addiction, whatever, there's all of these stories that need to be untangled. And I'm no different. I tried to rip myself away from so many mind stories that I created. And that's the interesting part of us, is that we believe this world to be created with our minds, but it's actually our minds that distort reality. We distort what is. We have a term for it. It's called, pardon me, it's the opposite of an archetype, which is a stereotype. Thank you to my assistant. I don't know why that word just left me. It's good that it left me because I don't think in that way. But we can literally bend the world to fit a narrative inside of our minds. Instead of being one with life and in cahoots with life, we can bend life, our minds, to fit a narrative that we like. And that narrative is usually us as the hero. And that is right there, the bending of what is to fit some narrative within us is dysfunctional psychology altogether. It is narcissism and codependency. And we can get rid of that. But the thing is we don't want to create the codependent as a villain or the narcissist as a villain. We want to figure out what we want to move towards. And what we want to move towards is interdependency. We want to be calibrated within the system without the use of our minds, meaning that our thoughts can create a reality, a delusional reality within us. Another term is it is us like arrogantly taking the position of God. It's another way to say it. It's my favorite definition of ego is edge God out. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're not allowing God to call the shots. We're saying should, they should, I should, we should, this should. And that's the basis of creating a delusional reality. And so how do we get out of that? We just think about how we work within reality. How do we get communication? Well, I know I'm a spirit having a human experience, and now I understand that I'm a human having a spirit experience. So I'm figuring out, how do I get information to move forward in time? So I think of it as I have a relationship with time, and my mind has a relationship with time. And how I function within that is how I function, how I experience reality. And so how is that happening? Well, I used to think that, I needed to be, the closest thing that I've ever come to was probably Buddhism, in like becoming a monk, giving up the identity altogether, shaving the head. When I recognized that becoming a Buddhist can be just as much of an ego snack as any other thing. But really, we can look at it from a different point of view. We can just say, how do we work? Do I have to sit and meditate for hours? Do I have to quit all of my vices? Do I have to become morally good? Blah, 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 blah. How about we do it come from a different point of view? That we can all agree that we are sentient beings, meaning that we are moved by senses. So how do we make decisions within time? In order to get to be moving in time, how does that happen? Well, it doesn't happen with our minds. We think it does, but actually that's not what happens. We will react to thoughts, and that's how we choose our thoughts. So we are actually, and this is going to flip a lot of people's minds right here, is that we are reacting to our senses. We are reacting to our senses, which we could change the languaging that. We can respond to our senses. But if we believe that it's our mind that's moving us forward, I know there's a lot of rational thinkers out there. I used to be one of them, and logical thinkers. You are still moving forward through time through your senses. There is a hierarchy of thoughts. And then it is our relationship with the thought that causes us to move through time. And so let's say right now, just take an extreme position. You're watching this video and you are either bored, you are scared, you are frightened. What you can understand is that all of that is happening from a relationship you have with your senses, with what is coming through and the reaction that you're having with your mind. And you could be saying, well, I'm ADHD, I'm PTSD, I have addictions that I can't handle. And what I'm saying is, don't focus on any of those things. Focus on that relationship with our senses. And I draw a hard line with the languaging I'm about to share with you. And the reason that I do this is because, like I said earlier in this video, that paradigm A will distort whatever we learn. It will distort it to meet its need. No, it isn't it isn't that thing. It isn't that thing. And so it twists it, and our minds can twist it. We call it the triple Ds: deny, deflect, and deceive. That is exactly what our minds have the ability to do. We can do that with each other, but we can also do that with ourselves. And so I draw a boundary within this languaging I'm about to share with you. And this all comes from the process that came through me, which is very simple. And I recommend anyone who wants to change, who wants to live in a peaceful world, that wants to be in cahoots with what is, wants to have a great experience in life. You take on this process. An aha is to accept, to hold, and to account. And so what are we trying to do with this process? Accept, hold, and account. What are we trying to do with the process? We are trying to develop an understanding of our relationship with our senses, the senses that are coming within us. So this might be a big change for a lot of people. So that might be the first step, is to get into an understanding that it isn't your thoughts that are causing you to make choices, because there is a sensation that makes you choose a hierarchy of why you chose that thought to come through over other thoughts. So here it is. We make a languaging, I draw a line in the sand. Emotions are one type of sensations that we experience, and feelings are the others. Now, Paradigm A has all kinds of definitions of what a feeling is, an emotion. And in the AHA process, we define emotions as unconscious. These are things that we don't know why these sensations are coming up. And now emotions are oftentimes fear and anger are very sentient or salient experiences. But they're also, if we don't feel grounded, then it's an emotion, and we should relegate it as an emotion. And then our feelings are when we feel grounded, when we feel we're not questioning ourselves, and we're not, I should do this, and then we're making decisions out of this reactions. So let's talk about emotions versus feelings. Now, a great analogy that came through was a sailboat. And if we think of the sail as our relationship to emotions, those things that we're unconscious of, and the boat, and how we're driving the boat. So in a sailboat, we want to catch the wind. We want the sail full, and we want the sailboat pointed in the right direction. And then whoosh, the wind takes us, and that is the experience that somebody who sails is looking for. They want that feeling of moving forward. Well, that's the same sensation we're looking forward for when we're moving through time. We want to feel our sails full, like we are moving forward in time. And we can delude ourselves to make it feel like we're moving forward. And we're going to make another language choice here, which is the difference between being motivated versus inspiration and being inspired. And so there are people who are very motivated. And I've been a motivated person. I've motivated myself, but I also figured out that I was also the ass when I motivated myself. And basically how I relegate this is, if I'm motivating myself, that's when I'm trying to turn on the gas engine to push the sailboat. And when I do this, I have a false sense of moving forward in time, but I am not calibrated to myself. I am using others. This is when I was in my egoic stages, when I needed to be better. If I motivated myself, then I needed to be better than other people who weren't doing the things that I was doing, and blah, 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 blah. But if I'm inspired and I'm moving forward, feeling from a groundedness, I'm alone. I've got the wind. I'm in cahoots with what is. I'm in the flow of life. I don't need anybody else in order to make me feel right. I am a sailboat unto myself. And so let's just look at our relationship between emotions and feelings and our thoughts. So think of a couple of analogies. Let's just imagine yourself in a sailboat and you're sitting there and figure out what life is like for you right now. Is it chaotic? Does it feel like life is fast? You've kind of got yourself out into the middle of the ocean. You're in your sailboat. Your sail is down. What is around you? Are you busy? Or have you found yourself in a respite? Have you pulled yourself back? Because I've been in both of these situations. So think of yourself as, and we'll take a view from both points of view, but we're going to go hard on both sides. So let's go out to the ocean. And let's say that right now, the reason you're watching this video is you're looking for inspiration because you're just deluded with life. You see the news and it's that's not going anywhere. Now I can't even hardly get on social media and get any kind of inspiration. So let's make that analogy as there's no wind around you. So now you're sitting in your sailboat. You're in your sailboat and you now hoist that you're listening to this video. You're starting to be inspired by this new way of looking at it. Now what's going to happen? And maybe this has happened to you that you're okay, but there's no wind around me. There's no wind. I feel like nothing is attaching to myself. And boy, I can feel an old self in there that recognized that feeling there's no wind around. I don't even know how to get started to get out of this lifelessness that's happening. So we put up our sails, and then what we're going to do is now we're going to try to get the wind going. So now I've got to do something. I've got to, let's say, okay, I have been putting off going for that run or going for that hike. That would be the first step, is just going out, go to the trailhead. Maybe you walk a mile and you walk back and that's all you got done. Maybe you used to do 10, now you just did 1. But you're doing these little steps to inspire yourself. Just taking these aspects or these little things that could inspire, that could provoke inspiration to get you moving in the right direction. So what's happening in our minds when the wind doesn't feel like it's going there? Well, what will end up happening is we will get so caught up in thoughts that what we're actually trying to do is we are trying to provoke a fight. It's weird for me to say this, but it's so true. We're trying to provoke a fight within ourselves in order to get some momentum going through time. And if we don't do it, the thing is that there's going to be some hiccup in life that's going to get us going. And so that's what ends up happening, is we will actually use our thoughts, and then we will look out everywhere. We'll look at Reddit and Facebook and Instagram and the news and everywhere to start to get worked up. So it's oh, I got to get going. I got to do this. And what we're doing is we're really we are creating a bunch of thoughts that will create enough expression or sensation And oftentimes we're going to come from a fight. We're going to come from an emotion. And that's just how our minds work in relationship with our senses. So let's look at this from another point of view. Let's look at like getting out of that system. Be inspired to get out of that system. And maybe it takes a little bit of motivation. Maybe you do have to just start with a walk. Maybe you do have to, well, first of all, just recognizing if that's what you're doing. Is that why you're going to Reddit? Is that why you're doing this? Why you're doing all of these things is that you are trying to get momentum. You're trying to ignite your relationship with the world. And so look for inspiration. Just start by looking at the little tiny things that you feel like, if I did that, I'd feel a little bit better. If I made sure to brush my teeth 2 times a day, or make sure that I'm showering every day, to have clean clothes, to clean my clothes. Housekeeping is a great, I made a video about housekeeping. Just doing housekeeping to get the wind going, because really the wind is always going. We can't be in time. The wind is always moving, and we're either finding a way in our minds to stay away from it or to move forward. So in order to get into the wind, we kind of got to get our sails up, and then we're going to try to start to feel the wind. We need to get back into life, to get back into the flow. And that's when we start to use the aha process to start to work with our emotions. And oftentimes that's exactly what we're doing, is we are deflecting and we are getting away from emotions, the emotions that we don't want to deal with when we get to this point of view. So the aha process: accept the emotion, hold it until it turns into a feeling. Okay, this is not, I recognize that this video is not going to be as concise as I would like it, but I love the fact that I created it, and it really does give it a good, I'm giving the basics of a lot of great things, and just cutting my teeth and doing this live thing is also great. So let's go to the opposite way. Let's go to, you get out there, and the problem that you have, or let's say the discombobulation that happens in your life is, man, the wind feels like there's too much wind. And so what's happening inside you is the opposite. You don't have that lethargy. You have, when you touch the world, you're dealing with really strong, hard emotions. And just imagine how that's happening with your sailboat and your sail. Like that, the minute that you put your sail up, that's you going into the world, poosh, like it grabs that sail, but it's not fully engaged. The boat's going the wrong direction. And then that emotion flips to another emotion, and you're going the other way. And there's just this chaotic boom, boom, going back and forth. It's the opposite reaction than that lethargic idea. This is when these strong emotions are taking hold. And this is a great example of when to use the aha process. The aha process is to accept. So when that whoosh, that strong emotion comes up, that's when we practice. Accept that emotion, because it is unconscious to us what true meaning is behind it. Because an emotion is unconscious to us, and what we are working to do is make those sensations conscious and into feeling grounded. And that groundedness is going to take our sail and move us through time. So imagine that this is how you use the process. Is that, let's just use the example of relationship. You've got a relationship that's just it's just these hard emotions that are whipping you back and forth. Start processing that. these emotions are not guiding you in the direction you want. Like, you have to understand that and accept that when an emotion comes up, you accept that emotion as being 100% true. So let's determine that this emotion has you make a declaration about your partner, that they are this thing. So what if you accept that emotion as being true, that they are this thing? Okay? Then you hold on to that emotion. That means you sit with it. You're not going to go and take your acceptance of this 100% to your partner. You are going to sit with your emotion. You are going to sit with your emotion. You're going to hold that emotion and that point of view. This is just changing your habit from the old way of just making decisions out of these harsh changes in life. And you will find that as long as you hold these positions before you make your choice, the feeling will come, the groundedness will come. And that's when you know it's turned into a feeling, is that your response to the person is grounded. If you're still angry at them, it's still an emotion. If your response to them is an angry one, you are not grounded. And you can change the language, and you will change the language, but you need to get a relationship with yourself, meaning that people who will say, oh, I know this is a feeling. I know this is a feeling. Well, you could tell from the emotion that it's not a feeling. And that's how you deceive yourself. You have to be honest with yourself and how you feel. You will know the feeling of groundedness. It's easy to make choices when we are grounded. And just recognize that once you're grounded, like, the decisions, when people finally leave a relationship and they're grounded, they have no reason to zap the other person. They're not going to go tell all their friends that he was this or she was that and blah, blah, blah. That means they made a decision from an emotional point of view rather than a feeling grounded point of view. And so the last A is accounting. So you account for, like, let's say this is a relationship and this emotion brought up things. Well, let's say usually in a relationship, it's not going to be, there's going to be a little for each partner so you take what's yours and accept it, and then you give away what's not yours. And that's just an internal calibration. And eventually the last A is really training wheels, because what will end up happening is the accounting just becomes an automatic process. It's like riding a bike. So then life just becomes, when you're doing this process, going from emotions to feeling, you'll just go, ah. Isn't it interesting that we say, I had an aha, and then you get to say, because life is the gift of experiencing you. You're in cahoots with what is. You're living in the dream. So I recognize that this video kind of went in different directions, and but I'm glad I did it, because I just wanted to cut my teeth and start these live sessions, because I think this feels like what I've been progressing towards, is doing live sessions and doing these more regularly, and it's just good to, like, get it out of the way, and we'll figure out all the technical things that are going on. Also, if you have feedback, please, we're a part of this, and the more feedback that people give, the more we can put together, and we can share with one another. So wherever you are in this life, I wish you peace, understanding, beauty. I wish you to get your sails filled and move forward, being your authentic self, bringing your gift into the world. May this be a magnificent journey.